Hi, I'm Dr. Mullen, and welcome to this week's video blog. What do you do when you come to a fork in the road and you have to make a decision about your future direction? Tough, isn't it? If you're like most of us, we've spent a significant percent of our lives wondering what was God's will for us, especially for the big decisions of life. It's worse for those of us who were taught that God has a plan A for our lives. And if you make the wrong decision, you fall into the abyss of plan B, C, or F. So we're always afraid of making the wrong decision, which would create those agonizing waits for God to lower the map out of heaven. We want a detailed outline of what He wants so we don't make a mistake. But I have bad news for you. God doesn't work that way. But the good news is there is no plan B. Last month I read Erwin McManus' book, Chasing Daylight, and he described how the Apostle Paul handled this very issue. Paul was clearly a New Testament superstar. He seemed to have a direct line to God. He was always busy changing the world and writing the New Testament. Even his aprons healed people, which I guess he sent out after he was finished in the kitchen. Paul got just as confused as we do about God's will and direction. In Acts 16, we see Paul in action. He was an unstoppable force. He was just propelled by the thrill of evangelizing the whole planet. In this chapter, he clearly had great plans how to reach several countries in Asia. I can just imagine how he described the incredible plans and opportunities to his companions as they sat around the campfire. But when he tried to go there, God stopped him. Now, it doesn't say how God did this, but I bet it was at the point of someone's spear. So he came up with another plan for another country, and again God stopped him. He must have started wondering if he was hearing God clearly. I'm sure Timothy and Silas were certainly wondering that. Paul's strategy seemed to be that he would throw himself against as many doors as possible and see which ones opened. Even when they let him in, they often beat him up. It was a bruising lifestyle. To me, it looks like Paul had no idea where he was to go. He just kept trying doors. He didn't sit around waiting for God to give him a map. He trusted God to contact him on the road and to show him where to turn. It's interesting to me that God let Paul bounce around between countries for a while. It must have been so frustrating for an ambitious, driven person like Paul to wait that out. But eventually, God had to speak to Paul when he was unconscious. It was probably the only time that he could get a word in. So the next time you come to a fork in the road and you have to make a big decision about your future, remember Paul. Don't feel you have to wait around for the divine map to be lowered. Don't be afraid of falling into God's plan B. There is no plan B. God speaks to us when we were on the road, moving. Trust Him to guide you with a series of continuous course corrections while you're moving. Closed doors or a bumpy ride do not mean you're in the ditch. So keep your eye on the goal, which is to love, serve, and worship God. And He'll always keep you on plan A. So to live a transformed life, you need to keep moving and trust God to steer. Now I want to hear from you. How do you determine what God's will is for the big decisions of life? Let's share our ideas. Just leave your comments in the box below. And remember, if you're new here, don't forget to fill out the subscription form right there so you'll get our weekly email newsletter. That way you'll never miss an issue. I'll talk to you again next week.